Right, welcome back for part two. Really enjoyed the first one, Jules, so thanks very
Oh,
much.
yeah, no problem. I'll do
Um,
anything for coffee and biscuits. I'm the cheapest date going.
now, we'll carry on with his questions that
Yeah.
we get asked. So we get a lot of questions, don't we, Jared, at Sharp?
Hell of a lot, mate.
About everything, but obviously, because Jules here, we're going to hammer Jules.
Oh, I thought it was you, Freddie.
So another NASH question we get asked all the time: is Scopex squid the same? Because a lot of people, because of the packaging, think it's different. Is it different?
Well, the only person that would know whether it's different or the same at one time would be Gary Bates, who put the bait together with Kevin Nash. And now, of course, it's Max Hendry. Is it the same? The only thing that matters to me is, am I catching just as many as was before? I can't honestly tell you it's exactly the same ingredients. I think it is. In fact, if I smell one from years ago in my brain and one now, it smells exactly the same. But the only people that know, and this is the same for all bait firms, not just Nash, the only people that will know that their bait is the same are the people in the factory putting that together. So for me, it seems to be the same. The packaging has changed, but the packaging when they re-released Scopex squid was different to the original Scopex squid packaging, and the new packaging is just new packaging. I can tell you that the new packaging Scopex squid is exactly the same as the Scopex squid when it was reintroduced how many years ago.
Yeah.
But the problem with Scopex squid, which we've got to get asked about a lot, is there were so many versions of it. And if we go back to the previous, people had Scopex squid tangy, Scopex squid red, and all of a sudden you've got 8 different versions of Scopex squid. And you guys with a massive shop, you know you can't stock everybody's favorite version of Scopex squid. All I will say is I have not noticed any drop off in my results from when I first started using Scopex squid to now, and that to me says it's the same. It's one of the few baits that the more you put in and the long it gets better and better. Some baits are brilliant to start with and die off. I don't know anybody who's ever used Scopex squid and said, oh, it's brilliant for a couple of years, but then it died off. I know people say, it just keeps getting better. Don't mean it's better than any other bait, but that's all I can say. As far as I'm concerned, it is the same.
Keeping on bait, Jules, obviously, I've seen it, obviously the Scopex squid stabilised.
Yep.
You used to use a lot of freezer bait, so can you just can you just explain to us like the difference between what you think or there isn't any from the freezer bait to the stabilised?
It's the old psychological thing, isn't it?
And just explain to us what stabilised.
Yeah, stabilised in effect is shelf life. It's a different version of calling shelf life. This goes back to a psychological thing. I don't care how good the new cars are nowadays. When somebody says to me, you know, favourite cars, I go back to my era and I look at the Ferrari F40 and things like that. Things with baits is back in the day, shelf life baits and freezer baits were totally different. Shelf life generally was preserved with potassium, salt. They were horrible. You would taste a shelf life boiling and it was horrible. It really was. You taste a freezer bait and it was. The difference in results, freezer baits outfish shelf life tenfold unless they were very hungry waters.
Yeah.
Nowadays, most shops don't have the facility to stock massive freezers of bait. And even more importantly, the public don't want freezer baits. They want shelf life stabilized baits. So the shops have to accommodate the angler. And then Nash, Mainline, etc. have to accommodate the shops. I've always preferred freezer baits because of the old school in me, because of what I know. But since I've used preserve baits, which in effect is the stabilised, I've not noticed any drop off at all. And I feel a bit guilty saying that because I always thought there was a difference. One thing I can say, but I can't disclose, is I know how Nash bait stabilises their bait. And it is not stabilised by ingredients, as in shelf life ingredients. I know what goes into them, which in effect makes it stabilized, and if anything, it makes the bait a little bit more attractive. But I'll hang my hat here and say, I thought I could sit here and honestly say freezer baits were better than shelf life. All I can say is when it comes to Scopex squid, I've not done any worse on stabilised.
Yeah, I mean, it's just while we're obviously doing this foot shop, I must admit now, Jules, it's 95% shelf life what we sell.
Yeah,
Totally
as
agree.
to oppose
Totally agree.
5% freezer.
And nobody wants it. And the reality is Nash could stock freezer baits. They're not going to sell it. And that's why the majority of baits nowadays are baits that you can buy off the shelf, however they're preserved, stabilised, shelf life or whatever. And no less carp per caught.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say.
Brilliant.
Your results tell you.
Now, another little good question, Jules, if you don't mind answering. I watch a lot of NASH YouTube videos,
Yeah.
the longer ones and everything, but I never see you doing the longer ones. And I
You
want
don't
you
see
to
me doing the shorter ones, to be
and
fair.
I want to see more. How come you're not on them, Jules?
For me, fishing actually on the bank time is my escape. That's my, is it blue sky moment or whatever? That's how I escape. I will do anything for anybody. I do as many shop days, tackle opening days, conferences, social media. But when it comes to going on the bank, that is my recharging my batteries time. And much as though people ask me to do films, it's not that I'm scared to do films. Remember, I did them in the 90s, the practical carp fishing videos. I did 6 of them. That doesn't bother me. But when I go fishing, it's my escape. And when I go on the bank, I'm the most socially unsociable angler. I go on my own. I don't often fish with friends. It's no disrespect to them. But when I go, it's just me, the carp. Not about catching more carp or doing my own thing. It's just that is when I cut out all the noise of the world. And that's the only reason I don't do films. Maybe one day I will. But, my advice is not on film. It's in magazines, it's in books, it's on social medias, it's on these clips. That's the only reason I don't do films. It's my private escape time.
Yeah, I agree. I get that.
You're not saying, aren't you, Gerard?
Yeah, because I'm open about it. I suffer a lot with anxiety, and it's my getaway, mate. You know what I mean? When I'm next to water and wildlife, obviously I want to catch. I'd be a liar if I said I didn't.
Yeah.
But that is my little getaway where I totally get where you're coming from. Where you're in your own little world, mate.
Yeah, they're not going to put those carp on my tombstone. And if Nash or whoever assists me with products is unhappy with what I do, then I'll be gone. And I accept that's a fishing business. But I would hope that what I do is enough to giving back to carp fishing.
What do you think, Bradders? Are we going to have a little? Shall we get Jules on a fishing video with us?
I don't think he'll let us. Maybe one day in the future. Maybe one day.
Oh dear. I know you're a big advocate for these, Jules, and I know what you use. Hook patterns.
Yeah.
We know you love the twister.
Yeah.
Do you sharpen your own hooks?
No, I don't. My view is that I prefer to do everything myself because my old man, Dad, told me, he says, if you want a job doing, do it yourself. And if you want a job doing, ask a busy man. So 95% of my fishing is me. I'd love to make my own bait. I haven't got time to make my own bait. I don't think I can make my bait better than everybody else. And when it comes to hooks, I cannot sharpen my hooks as sharp as Rigget Tackle do for me. I use exactly the same hooks as everybody else, which is the twisters, and I simply use Rigget Tackle to sharpen them. And the only difference is, and I haven't got it here in front of me, I thought I had, is I've got a little, when I get them sharpened and they come back, I simply take the points off, the point caps off, and I just give them a little rub with a finishing file and I examine them with the jag thing, as I've talked with before. And as far as I'm concerned, sharpened hooks give you more hooked up fish for pickups. You won't get more pickups, but what you'll do is the conversion rate of those pickups to hook fish is, for me, 3 or 5 times better.
And just for anybody, Jules, who hasn't seen,
I talked about it
on our previous video.
Yeah.
If you go back, watch Jules show you, obviously where he's used a sharpened hook on your rigs.
Absolutely.
Just to have a look. So it's there for you.
I can't sharpen them as good. I've tried. I can't do it as good. So as far as I'm concerned, I want the best, and they do it better than me. So I'll let them do that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Another good one, Jules, if you don't mind being honest as you can about this. Now, a lot of people, when they see these big anglers like yourself and they catch a few fish, they say, well, they don't use the same bait that's in the shop. No,
we get that a lot.
We get that a lot. Or they've got some special access to special bait.
Yeah.
Would you take 5 kg off our shelves and use that?
Absolutely. In fact, anybody's free to come and look at what I'm fishing with, and it is exactly the same as everybody else gets. I don't have my bait made for me. I simply contact Nash and the bait is sent to me, and it comes in exactly the same packaging as you guys get here. And again, this is a true story, and this will probably help people. When Key was discontinued, it was something I got confidence in. And I remember Kev saying to me, look, you know, we can give you key, we can produce key for you, but it's no good for Nash. If I'm using a bait other people can't get hold of, but I'm confident in, what good is that for Nash? I'm certainly not going to say I caught it on Scopex squid when it was caught on key, or vice versa. So, in effect, I had to, there's no point me using stuff you can't get hold of, because if I'm doing something and lying about it, and you're not catching, well, it's all right for Jules, it must be different. And I don't want to be fishing and think that the people who I've recommended are failing. Maybe it's a conscience thing or whatever I was brought up. But if you come and see what I'm using on the bank, it is exactly the same boring stuff I write about on social media. Oh, it is those rods, it is that reels, it is that bait, it is that catapult, it is those wonky bank sticks. Oh, it is that dodgy old brolly that's 10 years old.
Yeah.
So what I just use the same bait as anybody else. And, you know, I've done it before when I can't get some 12 mil hook baits or 12 mil freebies. I just come in here and buy 12 mils or whatever. So it's exactly the same bait. I don't think that's true for anybody. In fact, quite a few people in other brands will say, I've had it slightly tweaked. That's up to them. I don't mind people doing that as long as they disclose it. Believe you me, if I had Scopex squid slightly tweaked, I'd tell you, I'd say I've got extra Robin Red in it. When I was with NutriBaits, I used to have elevated levels of green lip mussel extract, and I always told people, I can tell you 100% the same bait that you use, I use.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks very much again for your time, Jules. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.